Hey, I'm Kirk Harnack with Telos Alliance, and we're going to take another little deep technical dive into the Telos VX engine. We get some questions about VX. First of all, what is it? Well, so we're on the same page. It's an on-air talk show system. It's multi-line. It can be multi-studio, and it natively takes voice over IP SIP phone calls into it. Some of the questions we get asked frequently: what does the VX engine actually do, and what's the basic idea for its configuration? We're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of configuration in this episode, but we're going to look at the basic ideas here. And the VX system consists of controllers like VSET phones and the Telos VX engine itself. The VX engine looks like this. It's a 2-rack unit box, no fans. It's perfectly quiet and extraordinarily reliable. Has 2 redundant power supplies. There has redundant power supplies and a WAN Ethernet port and a Livewire Ethernet port. You can think of the Telos VX as sitting between 2 worlds: the world of the telco, voice over IP, SIP. It's where your phone calls come into it. And then itself, it contains virtual phone hybrids for getting the best quality from the caller. It has audio processing to, again, get the best audio quality from the caller. And then on the right-hand side of the drawing here is the studio world. This is where the Telos VX over the Livewire audio over IP network sends caller audio to studios or to news workstations, wherever you need it, and receives mix-minus audio or send audio back to the caller. Plus, there are GPIO functions available. Now, in a previous episode of this little deep dive video series, we looked at the different ways to bring phone lines into the Telos VX. And there are about 5 different ways to do that. You can go back and review that video if you like. Let's look here at a typical implementation of multiple studios with the Telos VX. So here we have 5 studios. The blue lines tend to represent an Ethernet connection. There's the phone lines coming in the upper left. And here we have a VSET 6 or a VSET 12 to control the phone lines and control what show we're going to be using also. And if you don't have an Axia studio, if you're analog, AES, or some other AoIP system, then you can use an Axia X node to get audio in and out of the VX system and into your console system. Let's take a closer look at what's inside the VX here. Logically speaking, we have a pool of phone lines or extensions. So this would be all the phone lines from any source, from our business PBX, from a gateway device, from an asterisk phone service, maybe from a cloud-based SIP provider, or maybe an incumbent SIP provider. Anyway, all your phone lines come into a pool of phone lines inside the VX engine. Next is the studio definition. For every physical studio, we need to define, that is, tell the VX what the studio has for inputs and outputs and GPIO. So these are fixed channels that tend to not change. We're going to have the same audio console in a given studio. We're going to have the same X node. We're going to have the same audio path to each physical studio, because those don't change. So this is where we define the caller faders. How many faders do we have on the console dedicated to handling callers? This is where we have the audio routing to those faders, that is, Livewire channel numbers. Where we have mix-minus routes, Livewire channels coming back to feed to the callers. And we also have program on hold. This is where we define that. We choose a Livewire channel to receive program on hold to play for the caller when they're on hold. And there's something really cool here: acoustic echo cancellation. If you're doing a live TV show with a studio audience, open speakers, open microphone, well, the acoustic echo cancellation built into the Telos VX can make this work really well. It gives you full duplex communication with the caller, and yet you never get echo. It's just awesome. Oh, and your GPIO configuration is there too. So where you have a light connected to warn you of a hotline ringing, where you want to push a button to take the next caller, those are fixed things in the physical world. You just configure them for each studio with the GPIO configuration. So the portable configuration is the show definition. The show definition is where we tell the VX which phone lines to use for a given show. Remember that big pool of phone lines over on the left? Well, we pick the phone lines we want to use and assign them to a given show. So that's where we define that. We also can define hunt groups. If you're all SIP, you can do this yourself. Define the hunt groups, how big they are. You can even change the size of a hunt group if you need to. And you also define the busy all lines. So which lines get busied out when you touch the busy all button on the VSET, in case you want to get ready for a contest and don't want any hangers-on waiting to win something. So here we'll go review. This is our layout. This is where we already have the studio definitions done now. Each studio has live wire channels going in and out of it and a certain number of faders. Now we bring up our show definitions, and this is where we get the phone lines assigned to each studio by bringing up a predefined show that you've defined for each studio. So I've got the Kirk Morning Show. The Morning Mayhem is in another studio. The Light FM 103 is in another studio. Super 98 there, and over on the left there's Titan Sports for that show. Now, not that you'd ever play musical chairs with your shows, but you could. You could just move these shows around by by requesting which show is active in which studio. Oh, and by the way, the same show can be active in several studios. You can have the same lines appear in several studios if you want to. How do you bring the show up? Well, you use the VSET or the VSET 12 or VSET 6 to tell it, hey, I want the Morning Mayhem show, or I want the Titan Sports show, or I want the Kirk show in this studio, and I want it now in this studio. So here are some pictures of studios that are using Telos VX. There are studios that have, or facilities that have 6, 8, 10, 12 studios using VX. Or studios that, facilities, I should say, that have just, 1, 2, or 3 studios using VX. The point is, here's what the VX engine does. You define the studios, and then you define the shows and bring them up for each studio. Gives you a lot of flexibility and a lot of power, and if you ever need to make a change, it's pretty much easy to do so. Just do a little typing in your browser to do the configuration and to make changes. Thanks for watching. Be sure you watch this entire series on little short deep dives into Telos VX.